And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fire on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app, also at jbandgoldwatershow.com, where you can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety. Go back if you missed anything and pull it up, and there you go. We'll be right there in your phone or in your computer or in your stereo or wherever you want us to be. If you're watching to the right of the screen is Darren Goldwater. I'm Jamie. We're here till 2 today. It is a breaking news day in the sports world here in the state of South Carolina, and we're going to have you covered as much as we can over the next couple of hours. Follow us across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Radio JB and at Darren Goldwater. Text line is open, 321-8893, 843-221-8893. 93, and that's also our phone line, but those will be filled here in a few minutes by David Cloninger with the Post and Courier set to join us. We were planning last night to talk about hoops.
We can. Good win for the Gamecocks.
It was a great win for South Carolina basketball, but this morning the news broke quickly that changes are coming again and have pretty much been made official, Darren, in Columbia, with Mike Bobo and new offensive line coach Will Friend departing the Gamecocks program for the Plains. They'll head west to Auburn and work under new head coach Brian Harsin, who was hired from Boise State only about a week ago. Also, the news broke over there that Derek Mason is going to be the defensive coordinator. So just a week ago, essentially the offensive and defensive coordinators, at least perceived to be in Columbia, Derek Mason and Mike Bobo, they'll be coaching on the other side of the division in the SEC West at War Eagle. Now, where does South Carolina turn and things like that? We're going to get into all of that. I've spoken with some sources this morning, right now, unfortunately, it's the optics right now are the worst part of this.
Mm-hmm.
The optics are the worst part. This is going to financially $1.9 million is going to come off the books. Another $300,000 is going to be owed back to South Carolina, and that's in buyouts for Mike Bobo and Will Friend. So $2.2 million is going to go back into the Gamecocks' pockets to be able to spend how they wish. Remember, they still have to hire a defensive coordinator, a secondary coach, and we'll see what this means on the offensive side, Darren, because Mike was going to coach the quarterbacks and run the offense. I have reason to believe, based on a text I received, a little under a couple hours ago, that Garrett Riley at SMU is probably going to be a top target to be the offensive coordinator at South Carolina. His name came up early in this process when Shane was hired as the head coach at Carolina. Conversations I know have been had. That did not come to fruition for a couple of reasons. Some of those reasons unknown. Maybe it had to do with him being a co-OC or something like that. I don't know. But that right now wouldn't be the case if he was to be brought in. He's one of the sharp up-and-coming minds, certainly, that's out there. But let's not jump to conclusions just yet, and let's not kind of fire away at Shane Beamer and Ray Tanner and things like that. We need to let this settle and figure out exactly what's happened and what's going on. There's so much that we don't know publicly, right? I mean, to put this pretty simple here. Mike Bobo is going to make $1.2 million for the next 2 years per season at Carolina.
Yep.
He's going to make more money than that at Auburn.
Yes.
All right. That's not to say that there wasn't a counteroffer, there wasn't negotiations. I don't have all of that information official, but we don't know exactly why the decision was made for them to depart to the Plains, both of them.
Yes.
It could certainly have a lot to do with finances, and I think that plays a large role in this. So we need to calm down. There's going to be other names that emerge as well for the Carolina jobs themselves.
One of the main questions, at least that I have, I think others have, and I'll ask David Cloninger this in a second. He's about to jump on with us, is Mike Bobo and Shane Beamer. He said all the right things, Beamer did, when he was introduced, and how excited he was to have Bobo there. Was it Beamer's choice for Bobo, or was Bobo, because he was already under contract, was he kind of handed to Shane Beamer?
Well, we'll let DC jump in on that conversation. The information I've had on that for the last few weeks is that he was Shane Beamer's choice to be offensive coordinator at South Carolina. But we're bringing David Cloninger in with the Post and Courier. Hopefully you didn't sleep in this morning, DC. A lot of news has certainly been breaking out there. Happy New Year, right? How are you?
Well, there's always something to do around here, Jamie. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting 24 hours, but it usually is around South Carolina. As a former colleague used to say, it's always something. So that's pretty much what we have.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right. Let's get in. I was very excited late last night, even though I knew that there was a potential for some of this news to break. I was very excited to pop you on the air this morning or this afternoon and talk to you about Gamecock hoops. And we're going to get to that. It was a big win last night in a multitude of ways for Carolina basketball, opening the SEC season. But we need to start with football and what's going on here. Over the last 24 hours, what has come through your headset? What's been in your ear about what was transpiring maybe behind the scenes and that's led to this change, a quick change in the Gamecock staff?
Well, as I think you guys were just talking about it before I jumped on, Jamie, the fact is that, these guys have families and they want to do what's right by them. So if you have a good job, which they each committed to in South Carolina, paying them very well, but maybe Auburn's coming with a little bit better, or it's a better opportunity, well, you have to look at that. And both of these guys have decided to go ahead and take that opportunity, and it's coaching. This is what happens. You see a better opportunity, you should probably go ahead and take it. So looks very much assured that Mike Bobo and Will Friend will be leaving South Carolina to go to Auburn. And, of course, you never say you can't expect anything in a coaching carousel. But considering that both these guys just had their contracts amended and or finalized on Monday, it's a little surprising. That said, there's a big difference between contracts being agreed to and actually signed, and those contracts haven't been signed. Now, with Will Friend, that doesn't mean anything. He's never here, basically. But with Mike Bobo, there will be a buyout consideration. It just won't be as much as it would have been had that contract been signed.
$1.9 million is what they were combined to make per season over the next 2 years. $700,000 for Will Friend, $1.2 million for Mike Bobo. What do you know about the budget at South Carolina and what Carolina will have available? And they now have to fill both of those positions. They have the defensive coordinator spot still out there, the defensive backs role, the strength coach. What type of cash in your mind are they working with?
Well, that's $1.9 million back in the pot now, isn't it?
Right.
So that's how the way you got to look at it. And the fact is that there is going to be enough money to cover whoever Shane Beamer wants to hire. That's the main thing. The problem is that really through no fault of his own, he's kind of going back to not where he started, but he thought he was about to be done with this staff. Right. And now he's not, because the three most important hires you got to make are offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, strength coach. Well, now you've got all three of those left to go. And at this time, there's still a lot of guys out there, and you can probably offer them money comparable to what they're making wherever they may be. And a lot of people are, tearing out their hair saying, oh, you're not going to find anybody good. Trust me, you can find somebody good. You're just probably going to have to work a little harder, maybe offer a little bit more cash than you might have been planning to. So it is a case of just going out there and trying to find the best guys, because you can't just knee jerk and try to bring somebody in, just to appease everybody by saying you got to make a quick hire. No, you need to make the right hire. And Jamie, I said it before and I'll say it again. With this roster coming back next year, it isn't going to matter who you hire as any assistant coach. You could hire Bill Belichick as your defensive coordinator. You could hire Bill Walsh, God rest his soul, as offensive coordinator, and it wouldn't matter because you don't have anything to work with. This is going to be a results where you'll see the results in 2 or 3 years down the road, because next year it's going to be really hard to see them considering this roster.
But David, saying that, and that's certainly true for next year, there's also the consistency thing, right? I mean, you don't want someone to come in and then have to replace them or multiple guys as the years go on. So while results may not come next year, the hire is still important to lay a foundation that you can build on and not have to repeatedly change.
Well, of course it is. I mean, you have to get that in. You have to get those recruiting relationships established. And you have to make sure there's going to be some consistency, because not only is it the head coach that mamas in the living rooms want to know, is my son going to be under the same guy for 4 years, but it's the position coach too. That's why I think you've seen such a huge defection from not just South Carolina's football team, but South Carolina's secondary. Well, all those guys were loyal to Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson, who were basically their 2 position coaches and the head coach. So once one of them left, a lot of them left. So that's the kind of thing you're trying to avoid. But unfortunately, in this crazy coaching business, you can't avoid it. So you do have situations like this. I mean, I go back all the way to Steve Spurrier's, was it his first staff? I think it might have been, hired Brian Mangorder as his defensive coordinator. Actually, it came a little later. It wasn't his first staff. It came a little later. But hired Brian Mangorder, NFL guy. And he was here for a month. Right. And all of a sudden gone. Well, everybody was tearing their hair out then too, and they got Ellis Johnson. And then Ellis Johnson played one game and his defense was ranked number 1 in the country. Now, that could happen again. It could not happen again, but we'll just have to see. There are guys out there, and Shane knows a lot of them, and he'll go ahead and start looking for the next guys, because now it's like, look, it's coaching, and it happens. So you take the money that you could have saved, put that towards somebody else. By the language of Mike Bobo's old contract, there will be some money coming to USC from him. So you add that to the pot and keep on going.
On Twitter at DCPNC, David Cloninger with the Post and Courier. We felt just a few days ago, David, like they were close to making a hire at defensive coordinator. Derek Mason was the name that had emerged kind of as a leading candidate. He's also heading to Auburn. What in your mind does this say about the situation on the Plains as compared to the one in Columbia? Shane has been here for almost a month. Brian Harsin has been there for a week. And Brian Harsin has 3 guys that Carolina was expecting maybe to have on staff next year.
Well, that's kind of the insult to injury, because you did have 2 guys locked in, ready to go, and another one who was at least interested or who you were talking to, and now all 3 of them are gone. Well, I don't know all of the details that went into this, but you do have to look at what's best for these guys and their families and their careers. Is it strictly more money? I don't know. I probably don't think it's that much more. With Derek Mason, well, guy needs a job. So where is his best opportunity going to be to get him back on track, whether that's to be another head coach someday, whether that's to get in the NFL, whatever he wants to do. And let's just go ahead and say it, fellas. I mean, if you have a choice between making your bones, South Carolina or Auburn in football, what are you going to choose? Who wins more? Who's won more? Who has big banners to offer? Who has Heisman Trophy winners to offer? I mean, it seems a kind of obvious choice to me. Now, I'm not saying that all played into it, but it didn't hurt.
Well, I mean, one thing that we've known about, and you mentioned the money aspect, one thing we've all known about Auburn for a long time is money is just not a factor there. They have people coming out of the woodworks down there from Opelika and everywhere that are around it. They'll bring back.
It doesn't hurt that the Apple CEO is an Auburn alum either.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, all of that plays into this conversation. I mean, if Auburn truly identifies something that they want, they can go get it. And I personally think they made a great hire with Brian Harsin. But it looks like Brian Harsin has literally almost had to a T the same approach that Shane Beamer was going to have. I'd like to have a couple of experienced former coordinators on my staff, guys preferably with SEC experience, and he certainly got them. I would like to think DC maybe more than others that money might be a little bit more of a factor with Mike Bobo. I think Will Friend is a guy who's probably pretty hatched to or latched to the hip of Mike Bobo. The Derek Mason thing, though, kind of throws me off a little bit. He's been in the mix, it seems like, for a while at Carolina. All of a sudden, Auburn makes a hire, and that's where he's going. I don't know if he really cared as much about being at South Carolina as South Carolina cared about having him.
Well, guys, I don't want to get into, care about. I mean, the fact is that he was here, and I realize why there is a lot of frustration because you want this process to be done. And the thing about South Carolina fans, and I think really all fans in general, they want their coaches, their players, everybody involved with the program to feel as loyal to the school as the fans do to the school.
Yep.
And that's an admirable sentiment. It is, but it's just not realistic.
Right.
I mean, this is a business, man. It's a business. And the goal of any business is to make money. And in football, how do you make money? You win. Because if you win, you get more money. That means you can spend more money. And that's the way it is. And South Carolina right now is a program that has won 6 games in 2 years. Now, will it get back? Maybe. You hope it get back? Sure. But is it definite? No. And you just have to deal with that. So the fact is, it's like it doesn't really matter about like, well, I mean, did he really want to be here? I mean, he wanted to be here for a year.
Right.
That was obvious. But the fact is that he's not anymore. So you move on and you go on and you write down next year's game with Auburn at home in blood. And you say, okay, this is going to be interesting. And you hope that the schedule stays the same so that game will remain on the schedule. But, it's business, man. It's college football, and this is the way you go. And I'm reminded of an old Chris Rock routine where you have to kind of change the words a little, but you basically say a coach is as loyal as his options. And I know it used to torque people off severely when Will Muschamp would say, you're loyal to your paycheck. Because they want to hear, no, I want to hear him sing the fight song. I want to hear him say, go Cock. Oh, man, it's a business. You're loyal to your logo, to the guy signing your checks. And that's the thing you take when you go into coaching. You have to put aside where you played and where you coached and where you grew up and who you grew up pulling for. Because it's like, look, man, that doesn't matter anymore. And when you go into those rooms recruiting those kids, which is the main thing you got to do, who are you recruiting for? I mean, if you're Will Muschamp, you say, I was a good player at Georgia, and I think you ought to look there. Or do you say, I'm the coach at South Carolina, you need to come play for me?
Right.
That's just the reality of the situation.
Well, and Steve Spurrier said as much when he was in South Carolina as well. I mean, he would constantly get questions about Florida, and he said, "Well, I'm a Gamecock now, and that's what we want to talk about around here." Let's put a little bit of a spotlight on Shane Beamer and what he's been able to do here, even with these defections of Will Friend and Mike Bobo, to no fault of Shane Beamer's at all. The hires that are still on staff, the new hires, Des Kitchings, Tracy Rocker, Mike Peterson, all retained. Eric Kimry, Justin Stepp at wide receiver as the wide receivers coach, and Pete Limbo, an excellent special teams guy, as the associate head coach and special teams coordinator. Assess those hires and how that could portray the future hires for Shane Beamer, his ability to continue to hire the right guys for the Gamecock football program.
Well, with Limbo, because he's a coordinator and he got the biggest deal as in term, he got a 3-year deal and everybody else got 2 years. That shows that they really want to concentrate on special teams, which not that they didn't in the past, but really the special teams at South Carolina were a result of individual performances and not necessarily a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've had some great players. Parker White's a great player. Kai Kroger showed some really good development this year. The guy who preceded him, Joe Charlton, is punting in the NFL right now. You've had some great returners with Debo, guys like that, but there never really seemed to be a consistent plan of what you wanted to do on special teams other than Parker, go kick a field goal, or let's see if Debo can bust this return. So Limbo's a guy that loves special teams, lives special teams, and he's going to be a guy that hopefully can make a difference in special teams because that has been lacking from South Carolina for the past few seasons. So I think that's a really good hire. The guys have been all over, been a head coach before. He's going to know how to relate to the players. Obviously Eric Kimry, Columbia guy, Carolina guy, legendary Carolina guy. So you want to have somebody who loves South Carolina as much as a lot of these other folks do to go out there and express that passion to recruits and to be able to come in and coach. And being 17 years as a high school coach says something. And especially it wasn't just the number of rings that Eric won. It was the record. 17 years as a head coach, he lost 20 ball games.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say, oh, man, yeah, that's skeezer. It's private school ball. I mean, you still got to go win the game. And he lost 20 of them in 17 years while winning 194. So that says something. Des Kitchings, obviously a guy that everybody likes. The one guy in his room rushed for 1,100 yards last year. No problem there. Mike Peterson's been here for a while. He's established. He's managed to bring in a lot of talented prospects. And, those buck edge rushers that he's in charge of developing, well, B.J. Wanham's in the NFL right now. J.J. Enigbari tied for the SEC lead in the sacks last year.
Right.
So you have guys that are established, that are comfortable, that have been here for a while, that love South Carolina. That's what you got to have. And I'm not suggesting that you go out and say, I don't know, oh, well, Marcus Lattimore wants to be offensive coordinator. He doesn't, by the way.
No,
he doesn't want to be a coach. I'm just throwing it out as an example. But say, oh, that'd be great because he's a Carolina grad. Well, no, I mean, I'm sure Carolina grad helps, but he doesn't have any experience. So there is a line where you have to draw it between saying, well, do you want to get a guy who's real familiar or a guy who's best for the job? And sometimes with a coordinator, you have to go with a guy who's best for the job. So I thought Mike Bobo would have been really good for that. I mean, yes, there were problems last year, but it ain't his fault that he came in here and had no wide receivers.
Right.
That wasn't going to change, by the way. But now you just got to go find somebody else.
Well, let me ask you this. Sorry to cut you off there, JB. The fact that, Bobo's going to Auburn, friends going to Auburn, is there a fear that other coaches may also bolt to Auburn or somewhere else?
Well, I don't know about Auburn, but obviously if it's happened once, it can happen again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to hope, and you got to say, maybe try to get your arms around the guys you have right now and say, look, I know there might be some talks. Tell me where I stand right now, because I mean, you hate to play, the hard guy right now, but I think you have to and say, look, are you staying or not?
Mm-hmm.
I realize you got to do what's best for your family, but just let me know where I stand if I need to go ahead and start looking, because I don't want to be blindsided by anything anymore. Well, Shane's got a lot on his plate, and he knew that was going to be the case when he agreed to be head coach. So now you've got a lot more of it.
Yeah, Shane. I mean, Shane's learning right now what it takes to be a head coach. These things happen all over the country. They happen every year, and this is his first crack at dealing with something like this as the lead guy in charge. What's going on around South Carolina, too, could have some play in some of what the future looks like, DC, and I wonder how that affects the timeline a little bit. We're going to get in later in our program a little bit deeper, and definitely tomorrow. I think Mike Wilson's actually going to join us tomorrow from Knoxville,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got trouble in Knoxville. Jeremy Pruitt could be close to seeing the door. Dan Mullen could be moving on from Gainesville, and obviously that's going to affect the staffs of both of those programs. How does that, or does it affect the timeline that Shane is working in here now to complete the rest of this staff?
Well, I think there's always going to be an effect because you want to beat the other guys to the punch. However, even if you do, it doesn't mean you're going to keep landing that punch. I mean, well, I think we were talking a few days ago. It's like, ooh, Mike Bobo's on Alabama's list. Well, that turned out to be like, okay, but they're not going to go get him. Moving on. Well, now he was on Auburn's list, and obviously that succeeded. So even if you were proactive and told Mike Bobo from the front, man, I want you to be on your staff. Yeah, okay, great. You got me. Well, but now this other guy came along, and he's offering all this money. So it's a case of where you're never truly done. And all you can do is try to make the right hire and then keep trying to make the right hire the next time, because you never know what's going to come up. It's kind of good that it is happening now where things are still in flux, because once one domino topples, more are going to fall. And if two more SEC jobs open up, that's just going to change everything even more. Right. So you just have to do what you have to do. But the main thing is look at, I hate to say, you don't want to look at what the fans say, but you do have to look at performances and what public opinion is going to be a little bit, and say, you can't go hire this guy. I mean, there are some guys out there that could be on South Carolina's list and saying like, I mean, things haven't been maybe going well for that person, or maybe they have a history here that you don't like. I mean, for instance, let's just say Kevin Steele, since he will not be coming here. I want to make that clear. But Kevin Steele was a candidate, at least at one time. Kevin Steele's done great things at Auburn. He's done great things at a lot of places. But if Kevin Steele were to be hired at South Carolina, what would you think? Because the first thing that pops in my mind, that guy gave up 70 to West Virginia in the Orange Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
And it's never going to get better than that. I mean, you're never going to get over that fact. It would be Will Muschamp all over again. Again, Will Muschamp had a great season in his second year, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to backtrack. But the first thing you thought of, and the thing that became his legacy, you hired a guy that you got fired. How could you ever hope that that would succeed? It looked like it would, but it didn't. So it went back to the original. You hired a guy that got fired after he lost to your team.
David Cloninger of the Post and Courier. One final question here on this. I do want to get your thoughts on hoops before we let you run as well. You mentioned at the top of this segment about the contracts of Mike Bobo and Will Friend being approved by the Board of Trustees, but not signed just yet. We're about a month removed or so from the news of Will Muschamp's contract that was not signed, an amended deal that obviously changed when Thomas Brown left for the Los Angeles Rams. This is a recurring theme for Carolina fans, although they might not have all the facts. What they do know is enough to frustrate folks. How will this change things in your mind moving forward as they make new hires, not just in football, but in other sports, seeing as the world changes so quickly? Guys leave whenever they feel like leaving. Other schools are willing to pay these buyouts. Will this alter some of the decisions that are made inside of the athletics office at South Carolina and how they handle future contracts for these coaches?
Well, maybe, but there's only so much you can do, Jamie. I mean, I am glad to see that in the contracts that were presented on Monday for the new guys, there is a mitigation clause in there. You know, saying if you have to pursue reasonable employment, you have to try to get another job in coaching if you're ever to get fired here or whatever, or leave here, and that salary would be judged against what you were making here, and USC could recoup some of it. See, that wasn't in the other previous contracts, and they've been burned on that before. So that's a good thing. But as in terms of like, oh, well, just making the blank decision, we're going to offer more money, we're going to be competitive. Okay, cool. Where's that coming from?
Right.
Where's the money coming from? Because you don't have the Apple CEO writing checks here.
No.
And you only have so many boosters that you can go to, that you can keep going back to the well so many times before it runs dry.
Yeah.
So you do have to keep that in mind and say that, you know, this isn't the University of Texas, where some guy woke up last week, some rich oil guy, and said, you know what? I don't like Tom Herman. I want to get Steve Sarkisian. Make it happen.
Right.
And they're like, well, you know, it's going to cost us. I don't care. Here's the money. Well, that ain't happening here. So you do have to realize the financial constraints that you're in, and it isn't helped by the situation that we, the entire world, are in right now,
right,
which is hurting everybody's finances. Yeah. And the fact that while the total figure hasn't been decided yet, it's still being negotiated. If Will Muschamp gets his full buyout, that's $15 million you're going to have to shell out.
Right.
So you have to keep all those things in mind. It's why, you know, every time I've spoken with Ray Tanner, even with the how's it going, you know, it's like it never ends, because the AD's job is a constant budget crunching. How does this help? How does this hurt? You don't envy the things that he has to do every day. And trust me, he does things 24/7. You know, I just want to put that out there for the fans who are just like, yeah, all he does is sit around and think about ways to destroy us.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
so much that goes on. He's made his mistakes, but by and large, he's made a lot of good moves.
Yeah, I mean, and you're exactly right from on the financial end of things. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of sources who have spoken with Shane Beamer, and there are some financial concerns within that football program. They're okay. They're not going under or anything. It's not like they can't hire coaches, but there are some concerns, and those concerns are concerns in two part. One, we're in the middle of a pandemic. All right. And if anybody could have predicted this and losing all the fans in the seats and things like that, they wouldn't have probably made some of the decisions they made in the past, like many other schools across the country. And then the other part of that is you're in a little bit of a financial constraint, just what you just said a minute ago, compared to those around you. There's a lot of money that surrounds South Carolina and the SEC and beyond, and they're not quite there yet, but maybe they'll be there at some point in time. DC, I'm going to leave the football stuff there. I do want to talk hoops real quick. Last night, a huge win for Carolina in a multitude of ways. Not just the fact that they haven't played a lot of basketball, but they finally got to play a game in the SEC, and they destroyed Texas A&M on their home floor. Buzz Williams has not fared well against his buddy Frank Martin over the last few seasons, but a 78-54 victory. They go to Ole Miss on Saturday, and they were also shorthanded last night. What'd you see?
Oh, it was terrific, Jamie. And we don't know how good Texas A&M is going to be, but we really don't know how good South Carolina is going to be either. I mean, last night was their 5th game, so you never know what was going to happen. They were on pause for a month, and when they came back for their first game against Florida A&M, they were missing 5 guys. And last night they were missing 4 guys. So you never really know what was going to happen, and you think, okay, well, let's just see what they got. You can't really judge offensive and defensive systems because they've had to just change so much of what they do. I mean, they don't have guys that they were counting on right now because of circumstances beyond anybody's control. So you have to adjust and overcome. So what they've done is saying, all right, look, you don't want to have to do it, but Justin Minaya is going to have to play a little bit more of the 4 than he's used to, a lot more of the 4 than he's used to, and just hope it works. Well, it's worked. And the good thing is that in tight situations during the last 2 games, the only 2 games they played in the last month, when things have gotten tight, it's like, look, the one thing you got to remember, don't worry about designing the play. Don't worry about staying in the system. You need to worry about this. The Gamecocks have A.J. Lawson, and those guys do not. Give him the ball. Give him the ball. Let him do what he does. And A.J., bless his heart, has taken it. He's been, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, no problem. Loads up for those corner threes, hits those reverse lay-ins, drives the lane when he needs to, makes his free throws, which has been a big concern for the entire team. Last night, it was an 8-point lead, 12 minutes to go. And, you know, I've been around here a while. I've seen this and think, well, it's never going to be a blowout either way with USC. Mm-hmm. So you just got to kind of wait till the last 4 minutes and see what happens. Maybe they'll pull it out. It was an 8-point lead, 12 minutes to go. Lawson three-pointer, Lawson reverse up and under, Lawson steal. 15-point lead. I'm like, okay, it's over. I mean, I knew. And, of course, there was the USC basketball moment. He goes for a loose ball and kind of turns around and clips the scorer's table and falls down screaming and holding his ankle. I'm like, terrific. Yeah. Guy just scored 30 points, and now he's going to be down. But he's okay. His ankle's fine. But that's what you got to do right now. It's adjust and overcome and see what can win the game. You can't be worried about what you do normally. It's just you got to win now, and that's what they've done. So they'll probably have the same roster going to Ole Miss on Saturday. They stand to get Nathan Nelson back, which at least will be a body and a guy that you can plug in for a few minutes. They're supposed to get 2 more guys back at practice today or tomorrow, but they won't play Saturday. So we'll see what the roster looks like on Saturday, and then if they can keep this going. A&M, kind of weird, man. I mean, you expect Savion Flagg and Caldwell to be their 2 guys. Well, they were non-factors last night. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, these other 2 guys scored 28 and 13, but no one else came with them. So you never know what's going to happen. I mean, Ole Miss obviously has a high-scoring guard in Devontae Shuler. You got to put a guy on him. But other than that, it's a game that's like, okay, I mean, I think you match up pretty well. So just go and see if you can keep playing this well, going forward.
Yeah, guard play was special last night. AJ and Jermaine Cousinard combined for 45 points on 15 of 37 shooting. They also had 11 boards and 6 assists between the 2, and major props as well to Justin Minaya and Jalen McCreary. Those guys hit the boards hard, 17 between both of them as well. Carolina 1-0 in the SEC. Here, hopefully it stays that way, DC, but it's been fun to watch the SEC play the last few years for Frank Martin. His guys just turn it up a notch for whatever reason. They did last night, and it all worked out. We'll see what happens in Oxford Saturday. Real quick on the ladies, they're on pause. They're supposed to play Georgia tonight. They won't. COVID test, contact tracing. What are you hearing on that front?
Well, it's just a protocol, and I'm not sure if it was a staffer or player that got the COVID test. But with protocol, Jamie, they isolate the person who tested positive. If they have roommates, they're isolated too. And then they get a contact tracing list of basically everybody they've been in contact with. But that's obviously going to be the whole team. So they'll test again today. They'll probably take a couple of multiple tests between today and tomorrow and see how those come out. If it's just the one positive, then you can probably go play Sunday at Kentucky. But if there's more, they only have an 11-woman roster.
Right.
You can't weather too many absences from that roster and expect to compete. So it's just wait and see. I mean, you wish you didn't have to keep saying something so ambiguous, but that's what we're in. It's like, look, you just got to make sure it clears out. And once everybody's given the green light, they'll resume play. But right now, no game tonight, no activities, and they'll see what happens for Sunday's game.
David Cloninger on Twitter at DCPNC with the Post and Courier. I would encourage you to have an account with the Post and Courier online, postandcourier.com. Download the app or make sure that the newspaper, like the old days, is dropped off at your doorstep and you can pick up and read all about it. We'll let you run on that note, my friend. Thank you so much for the extended time this morning. I know there's a lot going on in Columbia, so we'll be monitoring your reporting as we always do, but certainly over the next few days with some of the unexpected changes happening with Carolina football and the Gamecocks basketball programs and things of that nature. Thanks, buddy. Happy New Year. Right, here we go again, but Happy New Year.
Different year, right?
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. There you go. Oh, DC. To Atlanta next. That's where Cory McCartney is waiting patiently for us. We'll get into the Heisman and the college football playoffs with him. We'll talk about some expansion, and we will bring up a local note that hit over the break for us. An old friend of mine, Justin Smoke, is headed to Japan to play baseball. That is public news. We're going to ask Cory about the Japanese Baseball League and how they've been taking some of our guys over the last few years. But much more on the changes in Columbia coming up here as well. I've got some information that we'll discuss at the top of the 1 o'clock hour, so we hope you'll stick with us right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
The Habbo radio station everyone loves.
I love them a lot. JB and Darren.
I love you, man. I love you too, bud. I love you, dude. I love you, Joe Montana. I love you, Holmes. I love you, Broseph Goebbels. I love you, Machacha. I love you, Tico Broje.
Okay. Let's continue here.
On the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 12:40. We're late getting back, but we apologize to our friend Cory McCartney. First time we've spoken to him here in the new year on the JB and Goldwater Show. On Twitter at Cory J. McCartney. He joins us from Atlanta, Georgia. Sorry about the bump back a little bit today, my friend. We had more changes at South Carolina, and we've had a lot going on this morning. So we owe you an apology. I'm sorry about that, but Happy New Year.
Hey, you two guys. I've had plenty of time here now to catch up on what's going on with the Mets, man. The National League East is getting revved up. So things getting very, very real with Mets and new owner Steve Cohen. So some massive news coming down just right before this appearance. So good stuff.
Go ahead and just fill us in.
Francisco Lindor is getting traded from the Indians to the Mets. So Carlos Carrasco also going back over in this deal. So remember, Lindor has 1 year left at $19.5 million remaining on his contract. I would anticipate the Mets getting him. There's going to be very quick talk of an extension. So this Mets team had a top 5 offense last year, and now you add a guy who many people think is the best shortstop in baseball. This is a big move for the Mets.
Great. Sweet.
There you go.
It's already a wonderful start to the new year.
1-2 finish in the division next year. Braves, Mets, and then whoever's third, doesn't matter. Braves, Mets, I'm calling it. They're out. Washington's out of this thing.
It might be.
That is huge news. Wow. And so, and that was that I didn't even see the news. Was that that was a trade, or they just signed him?
Yeah, that's a trade. So they're sending over their second round pick from last year. Myers, along with Andres Jimenez, is part of the package. So Jeff Passan was the first guy to have this deal. So this was the biggest deal I think that conceivably could have been made this offseason. Now, certainly Chris Bryant's name has been tossed about. He's only has 1 year of control as well. Nolan Arenado, is in the midst of an 8-year contract that he signed with the Rockies, but he only has a year left before he can opt out. So this was the guy I think everyone thought, in terms of the big stars available in the trade market, this was the guy that everyone was waiting to see if he was going to move. And the crazy thing is, this doesn't preclude the Mets, I think, from doing lots of other stuff. I mean, they could still get George Springer. They could still get Trevor Bauer. Obviously, they've already added James McCann at catcher. So, Steve Cohen, you got to remember, for all those owners that lost money last year, Steve Cohen wasn't one of them. This is one of the richest men in America, and he did not lose money last year as an owner of this team. So he came to play, and this is big. Sandy Alderson, who's been kind of their acting GM, said that, you have two things to play with when you own a baseball team. You have money and you have prospects, and they have more money in this owner's pocket than anybody. So this is big. And the fact that they got this guy without giving up money, that's a dangerous equation when you consider what they still have to play with.
They'll inherit his contract?
Yeah, $19.5 million, 1 year, 19.5 left. I think they'll immediately discuss an extension with him. You could be looking at, I saw Spot Track, who's a great resource for contracts. They're forecasting that he could get up to 8 years and $225 million past that. So think about what Mookie Betts got from the Dodgers, after he got traded over from the Red Sox. I think something very along those lines that had a massive signing bonus in it that was stretched out across the duration of the contract. So they took down a little bit in terms of the overall hit that they would have and allowed themselves to have more money each year. I think you could see something along those lines, but this is a very, very big move. And I think that the biggest, again, the trade market wise, this was the move you were waiting to see happen.
It's unbelievable. I would caution anybody against looking at the 27-year-old stats from 2020. Nobody's really mean anything. 258, 8 home runs, and 27 RBI. But this guy is going to play. But he's got another 10 plus years in him.
So it's a bigger deal than Josh Bell to the Nats.
If the Josh Bell deal would have come last year at this time, I don't know that we'd be thinking about it the same way, but it certainly would have felt a little more elevated.
Yeah.
This offense was really good last year. Conforto had a really strong season. Think about they were good, and Pete Alonso, who was on a massive tear in a Rookie of the Year run the year before, wasn't good in 2020. So when you think about that pitching staff, and you've got Stroman back, and obviously you've got Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard. Do they add Trevor Bauer? This is going to be a very, very good Mets team. And we knew Cohen was coming strong with this. He was clear in his press conference after taking the team. He was a fan of this team. He was there to win. This is not a guy who took this as a money-making maneuver. This guy came to win a championship, and this is a championship kind of maneuver for sure.
He's averaged about 35 home runs a year the last 3 seasons or so. I'm discounting 2020 again. They only played 60 games. There was a lot going on there. 33, 38, 35, or 32, his home run numbers in those 3 consecutive seasons in Cleveland. So some pop, and maybe the best shortstop in the game is headed to New York. Wow, that's an enormous piece of information to lead this off with you. All right, Corey, there you go. Breaking news. Before we get out of baseball, I do want to ask you about my buddy Justin Smoke and just get your thoughts there, because he signed last week. He's going to head to Japan to play for, what movie was that? To play for the Giants. Not those Giants. Oh, it was Major League 2. That's what it was.
I thought it was like Mr. 3000 or something.
No, it was, they signed the left fielder Tanaka from the Giants, but not those Giants. He's headed to Tokyo to play for the Yomiuri Giants. We've seen some guys leave big league baseball over the last few years, or at least leave the country and go play over there. He's got a nice deal in place, somewhere between $6 and $7 million. I can't remember exactly what it is for a year. What do you know about what they're doing in Japan and how they're kind of poaching some of Major League Baseball's stars?
Yeah, I mean, I think the TV side of it has really made it something where, it's not that they weren't taking guys before. I mean, I always think about, Cecil Fielder going over there and finding success and coming back and, hitting 51 home runs in a season for the Tigers. And obviously we've seen, guys in these past few years go overseas and come back and still have, viable major league careers. But I think that the fact that the game has become so much more global and the ability to access those games is so much easier now. I mean, if you're going to go to Japan and you're going to play for a team, the Yomiuri Giants are the ones. I mean, they're the Yankees of baseball over there. Obviously, Smoke did not have the year I know he was anticipating last year, hitting a $176 with the Brewers and Giants. I think the National League's question mark with a designated hitter played into how many teams were really interested in in acquiring him for the upcoming season. So I think this is a good opportunity for him in particular to go over there and hit reset. They throw a ton of breaking balls over there. I mean, that's their bread and butter, those pitching staffs. So, I think this is going to be a good opportunity for him to get kind of, in a lot of ways, like guys have done, taking 1-year deals here to kind of rebuild their value. I think this is an opportunity for Smoke to go over there and rebuild his value and think about a return to Major League Baseball.
Yeah, he's certainly trying to do that, and yes, you're right. It's because it's the Giants in Japan is why he decided, hey, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Let's head that way. I can't wait to see how my old Southern country friend fits in Japan, but we'll find out soon enough. Certainly, when he gets over there. All right, Corey, we'll leave the diamond behind and get to the gridiron here. The Heisman Trophy handed to Devontae Smith this week. Have you released your Heisman ballot and how you voted? Are you willing to?
Yeah, I did. Actually, it came out shortly after I had an article posted, fan-sided shortly after the announcement came out. Actually, it came out during Devontae Smith's press conference that we were on after the award ceremony. So I've been voting since 2008, and this was only the second year that I was not right with who I had atop my ballot. So little sour grapes there, I guess. But I went with Mac Jones. I'm going to be really interested to see this. What this means. We've for the longest time, I've always gotten caught up in the quarterbacks, and obviously, quarterbacks and running backs have been the positions of power in terms of the Heisman. No strictly defensive players ever won. This is only the fourth time a wide receiver's won. It hasn't happened since Desmond Howard. I'm going to be interested to see if this kind of expands how votership looks at players, and do we ultimately just eyes go straight to the quarterback? I mean, they still took, 3 of the top 4 spots in this voting, but I'm really interested to see the long-term effects of Devontae Smith winning this. I think that's going to be really intriguing.
I thought it was obviously an effect on both Mac Jones and Devontae Smith, and I just pulled up your fan-sided column here. I must have missed this, Corey. I must have been sleeping or something. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
You had Mac, Devontae, and Trevor at 3. We're going to get to Lawrence here in just a moment. But it obviously played an effect on both guys, Devontae Smith and Mac Jones, when Jalen Waddle went down with his injury. And I thought that, when that happened, it would be a challenge for both of them. You knew they were going to probably split votes anyways, and what would the offense look like? Well, the offense didn't miss a beat, and Devontae Smith just picked up everything that was left off by Jalen Waddle and literally ran with it to the end zone multiple times, like 20 plus. And that, Mac Jones continued to spread it around, but clearly Devontae Smith was his top guy. I just thought it was fascinating, the amount of attention that Devontae Smith got from opposing defenses in the SEC. It didn't matter. Every week he just turned out big numbers.
He did. I mean, the Arkansas game, obviously they bottomed him up. He only had 3 catches for 53 yards in that game. He made ran one back on the punt return team, so made up for it in special teams. That's kind of always one of the things with a wide receiver, right? Is defenses find ways to limit their ability to make plays, but obviously if you're involved in special teams, it can really change things. I found it interesting how the narrative just so quickly changed over the last few weeks, because with 2 weeks to go, Mac Jones in Vegas's eyes was the favorite. And then after the Arkansas game, and Devontae Smith doesn't have a great game in the passing game, and Jones's odds go down. Then he, after the SEC championship game, Smith is the overwhelming favorite at that point. So I just found it interesting the way that it so quickly flipped. And had Kyle Trask not had the game he had against LSU, I think it would have been really intriguing to see how it's set up there. But I hate saying that ESPN influences how voters vote, but I think you can go back to when Charles Woodson won, and he beat out Peyton Manning, who many people believed was destined to leave Tennessee with a Heisman. And a lot of people believe that ESPN really pushed the narrative in that game. I think there was a lot of people at ESPN that really pushed Devontae Smith. And of course, you had Desmond Howard, who's up there on stage as on game day as a former wide receiver Heisman winner. I think there was a lot of influences out there. I'm not saying the guy didn't deserve it. I'm just saying I'm stunned how quickly the narrative changed with 2 weeks to go before voting was closed.
Cory McCartney, 1250 here on this Thursday afternoon. What happened with Trevor Lawrence in your mind? We've had this conversation before. Trevor Lawrence, Dabo Swinney stood on the podium for a month, basically beating the drum for his quarterback. He not only being the best QB in the country, but in his mind, the best player or the most valuable and most outstanding player in the country. That's what the award says, most outstanding. Did somewhere along the line throughout the season, did he lose this? Was it his to lose and he lost it?
He lost it by getting COVID. I think it's the unfortunate thing to say, but he missed 2 games. And I think had he not missed those 2 games and Clemson would have went into the into the playoffs undefeated, Trevor Lawrence probably would have won the Heisman. I think that's just I've talked to you guys about this before. You've got to go back to World War II to find a guy who missed multiple games and won the Heisman. I think the fact that he got second, it was as good as it could have gotten for him. I don't think anybody's denying his legacy or what he's meant to Clemson, what he's meant to college football, in particular this year, and what he meant during the summertime and making college football in 2020 a reality. But those missed games were serious. And I think the fact that, we were so locked in to, the SEC and, the fact that for a long time, we're talking about the top 3 candidates being from the SEC until, Lawrence made that late push there to get back into the conversation and ultimately finish second. I think that was to his detriment too, but those missed games were real. And I think that's ultimately what cost him from giving Clemson its first trophy.
Well, and I think Darren said something a couple of days ago about this that he was exactly right about. It's not also that he just missed a couple of games. He missed an opportunity because it was Notre Dame on the road.
Yeah, that's huge too. Like think about, how big that game and those final moments were for Notre Dame, and obviously the rushing the field and all that stuff. That game, we didn't really know at that point what we know now about Notre Dame. Had we elevated Notre Dame in our eyes, a different way, I think if he had that game that he had in the ACC championship game against Notre Dame in South Bend, obviously you're not going to have Notre Dame playing in the playoff and ultimately getting exposed by Alabama. I think we would have even seen it, and obviously the voting was before that. But I think we would have looked at it all in a very different way if he had played in that game and tore up that Notre Dame defense like we saw in the ACC championship.
I want your take on this. I've asked it to a couple people by now, and most have disagreed with me. So it won't shock me if you're going to go that route also. I thought Trevor Lawrence, under pressure by Ohio State, looked like a very different guy who's not often under pressure and hasn't often been on his back. And his ball security wasn't great when he was getting hit and facing that pressure. Does that impact his draft status? And am I overreacting to that?
I don't think it does. I think you give the guy, when you think about 2 losses in a college career, I think you give the guy the benefit of the doubt. He's seen some great defenses. Remember his coming out party for a lot of people was that national championship game against Alabama when he just ate alive one of Nick Saban's better defenses. And that was a great Ohio State front that he faced. It's not the best that secondary has looked, over the past few years when you're talking about the Buckeyes. But we've seen some great defenses go up against Trevor Lawrence, and we've seen him be exceptional against those defenses. So I don't think it changes anything. I think you almost have to talk yourself out of taking him number 1 if you're the Jaguars. I think it's without question the clear choice, the easy choice. Those locks are going to be flowing in Jacksonville, and that's going to be for real.
Well, and what else might be for real? It might be real that he has either Urban Meyer or Joe Brady as his head coach in Jacksonville. What would that mean to the rest of that division?
Yeah, I think Joe Brady's the choice there, right? I mean, you're talking about Urban potentially winning 12 million a year, which is on line with what Bill Belichick makes with no NFL experience. At least Joe Brady, you've seen him work in the NFL. You've seen him go to college and be successful, working with Joe Burrow, and now you've seen him again at the NFL level. To me, that's a guy that just makes a lot of sense, and they can grow together. I just don't know how, is Urban Meyer going to get bored again? I think that would be the biggest question mark to me. Does he go to the NFL, spend 2-3 years, and get bored? And then what does that mean for Trevor Lawrence's development? So to me, Brady's just a guy who has the mindset. He's got the resume. I think that would be a fantastic pairing for Trevor Lawrence.
All right, Corey, we'll finalize our segment today, the last few minutes, with what comes Monday night. I know you in particular are excited about this one. Third-seeded Ohio State, third-ranked Ohio State, top-ranked Alabama in the national championship, tied right now 8-point favorites. And based on what we saw in the semifinal round, Alabama taking down Notre Dame 31-14, I think was the score there. We just talked about what Ohio State did to Clemson. I kind of felt like there's across the country, there's a lot of people that pull against Ohio State. Always has been, always will be. You're not going to like the guys that win all the time, and Ohio State's certainly done that. But it felt like going into that Clemson game, there was more pulling for Ohio State. I think there was this Alabama-Clemson fatigue that people just did not want to see, and they're not going to see it. It's Alabama and Ohio State. When you look at this matchup, what is the first thing that you see?
Lots of points. I mean, I think the over/under for this thing is 75. Based off what we saw in the semifinal games. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we saw Justin Fields. I can't remember the last time Ohio State played in a big game where I saw them be that dominant. It was just hitting on every cylinder for them. Think about the way Trey Sermon's taken off these last two games, obviously having Chris Olave back along with Garrett Wilson, and we know how deep that passing game is. And then, defensively, they were just spectacular. But I think when you look at these two offenses, it's been wild to watch Nick Saban grow offensively and make defense, a secondary thought like it is in the Big 12. I think this really sets itself up to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a couple of great quarterbacks. Obviously, the running backs are huge. There's great wide receivers. This is going to be a video game like national championship, and I think there's going to be a ton of points scored in this one.
I mean, we've talked about the quarterbacks so much, and people will continue to do that. But the way that Trey Sermon is running the football right now, he looks like the best tailback in college football, at least the last few games. We did the math the other day, something like 200 and some odd yards a game for the last 3 games.
600 something.
Yeah, yep. It's ridiculous. And then you got Najee Harris on the other side. You'd like to think this is a QB game. You got the Heisman Trophy winner and Devontae Smith. But I think most importantly on offense for both of these teams is how well they run the football.
Yeah, and I mean, if either side, what's the best course you have offensively? And it's going to be to keep the other offense off the field. So I think, obviously establishing the run for both sides is going to be huge. We've seen both these running backs be explosive, and we know that that obviously that Alabama is a little bit deeper in the running back set than Ohio State is without Master Teague. So I think this is going to be really fun to watch, and it's going to be really cool to see how these teams adjust, knowing how explosive the other offense is. So again, everyone's going to be talking about Devontae Smith. They're going to have their eyes on Mac Jones. And they're going to have their eyes on Justin Fields. But I think you guys are right. I think Najee Harris and Trey Sermon are going to go a long way in determining who wins the national championship.
7-win team, Ohio State, is in the national championship.
And this is the Marlins, right? This is the Marlins making the playoffs, the postseason, and advancing. Obviously, a little more elevated when you talk about playing for a national championship. But don't count out the oddities still coming from the 2020 campaign and all that we had to do to adjust for it. So it's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
I love the comparison there.
Is there, have you heard any update on the Ohio State COVID situation? Is there any chance at all we could get to the weekend and this thing be pushed back for some odd reason because of their COVID numbers?
Nothing further at this point. Obviously they're saying that things are still on track for them to be playing on Monday night, but I think you have to hold out until we know it's Monday and everyone's in the building. I think you got to hold out that potentially anything could happen. So, I think talk about rules that have been bent for Ohio State, them even playing for the Big Ten championship. The fact that they, got in playing, 6 games, the fact that, anything could happen, it has to be held in your mind. I mean, I think you want to see the best version of this game possible, right? And if we have to wait another week for that to happen, I would rather that. I mean, say what you want about conspiracy theories. Are they trying to make Justin Fields healthier? That doesn't it help Alabama too with Jalen Waddle? I'd wait if you have to, but let's see the best version of this game that we possibly can.
I'm with you on that.
No doubt.
No, I agree. I mean, I'd rather see him play it Monday night, but I'm with you on that. We've gotten this far. We got one damn game left. Do whatever it takes to get that game right. We don't have to worry about everybody else anymore.
It's one of the few
they have to do.
It's one of the few things football has actually done right getting down to these playoffs. They're like, all right, at this point, if anything happens, we're just going to push it back a little bit or make sure the same 2 teams play. It's one of the few things they did right.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and Corey, this actually coincides with what SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said a couple of months ago when he was asked about expanding the playoffs and things like that. He said, I actually think it would make it more difficult on us if we expanded the playoffs. Now, in theory, it probably seemed like the right thing to do to make it a little bit more fair out there to be able to evaluate teams and who should be playing in this thing. But as far as actually playing the playoff itself, which is what everybody was most concerned about this year, just being able to get some type of season in, it made all the sense in the world when we get to the last game here and you see what could have happened. So I think he was right.
Yeah, I still think I would have liked to have seen some sort of a bubble. I think it would have been a smart move, and I think everyone would have understood, especially when they moved the Rose Bowl, that they could have just put these 4 teams in one building, and played and had kept them there for for a week, and then maintained and had that the 2 left for another week. I think it could have went off without a hitch in that way. But all credit to college football. As much as we kind of wondered if this thing had legs and if it was going to make it through, if it was going to stumble to the finish line. Here we are, 1 game left, and it's gone off without a hitch.
Yep. It'll go off hopefully on Monday night. Corey, we look forward to speaking with you again next week. We'll look back at the ball game. We'll actually talk about the playoff and their future and things like that, as long as breaking baseball news gives us time to do that. But Happy New Year, my friend. Not much has changed. And we look forward to speaking with you next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Later.
Cory McCartney from Atlanta, Georgia. Time for a timeout. Hour 1 is in the books. When we return back in to what's gone on in Columbia, South Carolina, some new information that is kind of out there. I've got some information to share as well. We'll talk about Tennessee. We do have Scott Glaze later on. He's going to chime in on the really incredible documentary coming up this week on Tiger Woods Sunday night on HBO Max. So this is going to be a lot of fun in the final hour. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back. What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Cloninger, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour here on this Thursday afternoon. It is a breaking news Thursday afternoon on the JB and Goldwater Show and all across the state of South Carolina. We're not exclusive to this in any way, shape, or form. Welcome back. If you're watching or listening on our app, thank you. If you're not, you should download it. It's free. JB and Goldwater. Go to your app store. You can also head to our website, jbandgoldwatershow.com. If you are watching to the right of the screen, that is Darren Goldwater. I'm Jamie, and we're here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. We will check in with Scott later. There is a documentary coming up this weekend, a 2-parter on HBO about Tiger Woods, and I really want to get his take on this. I read a report this morning with some of the details from Richard Deitch with The Athletic, and it was very revealing. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But back to Columbia we go. Our phone lines, by the way, are also open. We're going to go ahead and open those up. 843-321-8893, and that's also our text line. So if you can't call and you want to send us a message, go ahead and do that. 843-321-8893. All right, as we kind of review what has happened today, Mike Bobo and offensive line coach Will Friend are departing the Gamecocks football program even after having their contracts approved earlier in the week by the Board of Trustees. And they'll head to the Plains to coach for Brian Harsin at Auburn, newly named head football coach Brian Harsin at Auburn. This is certainly, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but a surprise to many. And South Carolina and Shane Beamer in particular will be looking to fill those positions. Now, who are some names that have been mentioned? Some names that have been mentioned to me, I have not cross-referenced any of this. These are names that have been mentioned to me in the past, and they have recurred again with people that I trust. Tyler, thank you for listening, and Gaffney. Certainly Garrett Riley at SMU is a name who has come right back up with this search, and I think there are some out there today whom have reported that possibility that he maybe could end up in Columbia officially if things go that way. Keep in mind, Shane Beamer yesterday was in Starkville, Mississippi, interviewing Zach Arnett for the defensive coordinator position, another role in this staff that actually has not been filled yet.
Or filled and vacated.
Yeah, or filled and vacated, right. I have also had somebody text me today saying, look, depending on what happens down in Florida, if Dan Mullen doesn't return, maybe keep an eye on offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, who's one of the hot up-and-coming names. He's a guy that Ray Tanner actually spoke to about this job when he was interviewing for the head coaching position, this job as a head coach. Now, if you ask me today, how likely would that be? I would venture a guess that it would be, I'd say, fairly unlikely at this point. But as we have come to find out, right, things change quickly. Garrett Riley is the brother of Lincoln Riley. His name has been on the radar. He knows Shane Beamer well. And there's a lot in the industry who really think that he is one of the better young names in coaching at that position, offensive coordinator. So those are a couple to keep an eye on. I've had somebody ask me about Bobby Bentley and returning to, well, he's still on staff technically at South Carolina, but I guess you know what I'm saying, or returning on the field and maybe taking over as an offensive coordinator. I texted somebody before the show about that. The response to me is that seems unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that that would necessarily be true in Columbia. Some of the latest news that is coming out of there, and I just texted JC Sherbert to make sure that it was okay. We don't have any interest around here in reporting things that are reported by other people. That's called plagiarism, and we're not going to do that. But Tony Morrell with the Big Spur about an hour and 15 minutes ago did issue a report, and so I wanted to check with JC and make sure it'd be okay for us to discuss this and make sure that all of you know that this was information provided by Tony Morrell and thebigspur.com, and you can go there if you're a member and read more of this. I'm going to read what he wrote, and we'll talk about it from there. Tony said that he was told that Mike Bobo approached Coach Beamer and said that he was considering this opportunity at Auburn, and Shane told him to do it. Shane apparently there was not much effort made to retain Mike Bobo because he was interested in another opportunity. And this has been portrayed to Tony that Coach Beamer is interested in having coaches who want to be here and not coaches who don't really want to be here. Tony would go on to say, again, this is Tony Morrell, his report from the Big Spur. The feeling is that the contract that Mike Bobo was offered was in line with his experience and his track record as a coordinator, and that there was not much desire in the camp at South Carolina to try and match the offer that Auburn was making. Money is there, apparently, but it didn't seem justified in the minds of Shane Beamer and others in Columbia to try to match that amount of money.
So simply put, on the Bobo front, Bobo approaches Beamer, and he says, listen, if it's even in your mind, go ahead and take it. We're not even going to try and counter you here. That's basically what you just read.
Exactly. Again, this is a report from Tony Morrell, so some discussion is going to follow with this here in a moment. Tony also goes on to say Coach Beamer sees this actually as an opportunity to put together an even better offensive staff when all is said and done. Clearly, we all know you actually are going to have to do that and prove that that can be done. But we'll see what happens there. Tony also goes on to say, and we've received many messages about this today, and I haven't been able to confirm this. This is from Tony Morrell's report, that there is some conversation that running backs coach Des Kitchings could also be heading to the Plains to coach under Brian Harsin, but he has not been able to confirm that. And that would be, of course, 3 coaches leaving this staff for Auburn, 2 who have spent 1 year in Columbia and then 1 who've spent about 1 week in Columbia.
Can you recall the last time let's just put it in blunt terms, a school has poached 3 coaches at once from a in-conference, rival, or at least another team from in-conference? Because it feels odd to me.
Not necessarily.
I mean, it's a tough question right off the top of your head. It feels odd, and it seems like 2 is one number, 3 would become another. Obviously, seems like that Auburn Carolina rivalry ramps up significantly because of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been some attempts made. I don't know that they've been very successful. I mean, look, most recently, I mean, when Shane Beamer was even hired, there was some talk of both Will Friend and Jay Graham departing the Tennessee staff for South Carolina. Of course, Jay Graham's been in Columbia before under Coach Spurrier, but that would have been a couple. You know, I'm trying to think of everything that Coach Muschamp did and where he kind of pulled all of his assistants from here and there. Obviously, he hired a bunch of Georgia guys, but they weren't all necessarily at Georgia when he hired them. Spurrier brought in folks from all over the place. So did Coach Holt. So, yeah, I'm thinking on the Carolina side of things and then trying to think about the rest of the league itself. I just don't, off the top of my head, I can't really recall at this point.
Yeah.
That should be a credit to Carolina because there's somebody that thinks they certainly have really good coaches.
It's
good news.
It's a plus. It's a plus and a minus. The plus is, okay, you've been able to assemble a staff of good coaches that are valued by others. The minus is that they went somewhere else.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I think there's a credit deserved here to both Will Muschamp and Shane Beamer that there are others who have pursued their staff. I mean, they have both of. I mean, Shane Beamer has hired a nice staff. He retained, I think, the right guys. And let's face it, whether you like Will Muschamp or not, Will Muschamp hired good coaches at South Carolina, and this is even more proof of that. And of course, these two will be departing the program. So I'll continue to kind of dig around with the folks that I know on the future of Des Kitchings. I know that Des Kitchings is really happy at South Carolina. He wanted to be here when he was at NC State. And Will Muschamp had an opportunity to hire him when Thomas Brown departed for the LA Rams. I mean, that just goes to show you how good of a coach he was. Leaves to go to the Rams, Coach Todd Gurley in that group.
Yep.
And then he hires Des Kitchings from NC State, who was NC State's top recruiter. And you look what Des Kitchings did this year with that running back room. I mean, Kevin Harris had a special year, but Deshaun Fenwick was really good. You know, Marshawn Lloyd goes down with his injury and everybody's concerned about it. And that was the best group on the field. So, you know, I know that he you know, he's from this state. He understands this state. He loves this state. The one thing that is really striking to me with all of this, I mean, Mike Bobo, I know that if you read social media, the cesspool that is social media, I just wish it never existed. But if you read it, there's so much, there are so many people out there with just anger and just frustration and disappointment, however you want to summarize all that. It's a lot, and people are frustrated and they're hurling insults left and right at Mike Bobo, and of course Ray Tanner. It's his fault for everything, and others. But you know, Mike Bobo is a pretty sincere guy, and he is. I know people that know Mike very well, and he did want to be here. So the one thing that strikes me with all of this, Darren, is the money has to be a major issue here. And I don't know that that's necessarily a negative. It's South Carolina. Auburn has a true history of just dumping cash. Insert joke where you'd like, you know, as far as hey, they've been cheating for years and things like that. All right, I'm not going down that road, but they'll pay for somebody that they really want. And so I just have to look at this and think, if you're an assistant coach, you're Will Friend or Mike Bobo, if Des Kitchings gets reeled into this somehow, that there's just a lot of money exchanging hands to bring the guys that they really want on that staff in. And if you try to put yourself in those shoes, I mean, Darren, you and I we could all be making just a wonderful living. These guys are making a wonderful living. I mean, it's public. You know, Des Kitchings was making what, $450,000, and Will Friend 700, and Bobo 1.2 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than almost all of us make. And that sounds wonderful. Yeah, you can make a living on that. But if the market says you're worth more and substantially more, 900 as opposed to 4, I'm throwing these numbers out. I don't know them to be true, but 900 as opposed to 450, or 1.1 as opposed to 700, or almost 2 million as opposed to 1.2. It's not getting a $40,000 to $80,000 range. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million. It's hard, even if you love a place, to not leave it behind and move on. It's hard to not do that.
It's not just your life altering. It's like generationally life altering, right? I mean, if you can go and take your $1 million salary this year and turn it into $2 million, what does that become for your kids and for their kids? I mean, it's the bigger picture like that. For Bobo as well, one thing that I just can't get out of my head, and I have absolutely no knowledge of this, it's just, I don't know, in some ways I feel like it's some common sense. This was not an easy year in Columbia. This was not an easy year anywhere. It particularly was not an easy year for Gamecocks football. It wasn't on the field. It wasn't off the field. As the year went along, the pressure from the outside got really heavy. Then you're the interim guy, speaking of Bobo, and you try and play in this bowl game, and that doesn't happen. You wonder if he gets presented with an opportunity and it's like, you know what, fresh start. It didn't work here for whatever reason. It didn't work here. I just need a change of scenery, and that could very well be a part of this, at least for him as well.
Look, I was on the phone with somebody on the way over here who has been directly tied to the coaching change situation at South Carolina. You heard me when I walked in.
Yep.
And I was on the phone with this person, and he said as much as well. He said, look, as far as stability goes for both Mike and Will, and who knows, maybe some others, I don't know. They might be looking at the Auburn opportunity as, hey, look, we get another fresh start here, maybe a little bit of a better situation, and then you pile a ton of money on top of that. It's just something that you can't say no to. Now, if you're a fan, I think David Cloninger a little while ago really, really said it best. You want everybody to love it as much as you do. And people started to kind of turn the corner a little bit a month ago when Shane was hired, because it was a breath of fresh air, and they figured out quickly, this guy loves this school like we do. So I would caution fans this. If he does, he's going to find somebody that is qualified and feels something very similar to him to handle all of the open positions at Carolina. And he's done that thus far. Obviously, when you look at the hires, Eric Kimry, obviously being a hometown guy. But then when you look at Justin Stepp, he's from Pelion, grew up going to games at Williams-Brice Stadium, has a great affection for this program. You bring him in. I know Pete Limbo is not necessarily that guy, but Pete Limbo is the best available dude out there to run a special teams department within your program. So, he's made it a point to hire guys who really want to be on staff here. And they're not all going to be that way. They're not all going to be former players and things like that. But he'll find guys who fit. There are some really good names out there. I hope people don't look at this and think, well, there's nobody left. There's a lot of people left, and there could be more if there's changes in this league with folks who are familiar with this program. Florida, Tennessee. I mean, we're going to talk to Mike Wilson tomorrow, I think, from Knoxville. But I've said this 2 weeks ago. And you and I have talked about this week. I don't think Jeremy Pruitt's going to be the coach later on this year.
Yeah.
I mean, and now there's reports. I mean, Chris Lowe said that yesterday publicly up there in Nashville on the radio, not Knoxville, in Nashville. And he said, look, I don't know that this is going to happen. I just don't think he's going to be here. That's going to open some doors up there. There might be guys looking for new jobs. We'll see what happens at Florida. They might hire coaches who are trying to poach guys from Carolina. This carousel is not done spinning.
No.
At all. And Shane's figuring it out right now. He's getting his feet in the water and figuring out, man, there's a bunch of sharks out there. And they'll bite whenever they feel like biting. And that's just kind of where it is. It's frustrating for fans. I get it. What stinks about all this is in the middle of trying to fill out your staff, you're also trying to recruit kids. You're trying to recruit the transfer portal. You're trying to fill your roster. You don't know who's necessarily going to be staying. You don't know who's going to be going. You don't know those things. There's no stability at all in your program. And that's going to be priority number one for him once he can get some of these coaches in, trying to stabilize everything in Columbia and get a game plan together so they can move forward together.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall wherever Shane Beamer is right now, because the reaction from fans is understandable, right? There's a whole lot of excitement. Here's Beamer. Here's the staff. People love it. There's good, if not very good, feedback about this staff. And then suddenly, really out of nowhere, you lose your offensive coordinator and you lose an offensive line coach that you basically just hired. And it feels from the outside like the wheels are falling off and here we go again. But you wonder if Shane Beamer is just sitting back and saying, okay, like that just means I can go out and find another guy. There's no way that Shane Beamer's reaction is the world is on fire like the fans' reaction is right now. It can't be.
Right.
For his sake, it can't be. So everything we've heard and seen from Shane Beamer, he's a level-headed guy. He's been around the game for a long, long time, well-connected. I don't think this is something that is making him panic. It's just something unexpected. It's something else to deal with. Like Cloninger said, it's always going to be something. So it's something else to deal with. Like you said, you got recruiting that you're worried about right now as well. But my sense is that there is significantly more calm around Shane Beamer than there is around the outside that we feel right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do think that, and I've had someone mention this to me as well. He probably needs to hit the gas pedal a little bit and trying to get this staff as finalized as he can quickly. The one thing I think that is my takeaway from all of this, my main takeaway is the optics. The optics just don't look good. Now, I don't really fault Coach Beamer for that. This is college football as we know it now, and you're guarding against a lot, and optics, unfortunately, are part of it because everybody, even though they shouldn't, has a voice in everything that happens. So you are trying to guard against the optics as much as you can, and right now those are not in South Carolina's favor. I think optics wise, it's been poor at best for the Gamecocks football program. But I do think that can change quickly when they do make hires. They're going to make hires. Somebody's going to fill all of these positions at South Carolina. It's going to happen. They're not going to get into the spring and into the fall without a coach at some position or without a coordinator, Darren, or anything like that. This is going to happen. But this is the world that we're living in right now. And with this pandemic, let me tell you also, this is something else to consider for people. With this pandemic, the haves and the have-nots are being separated quickly. Because if you're a have, the pandemic didn't affect you a ton. It might have affected you, but not like the have-nots. And in the SEC, there are the haves and there are the have-nots. And right now, Carolina is a have-not. It's just where they are.
Yep.
They don't have the money of Auburn. They don't have the money of Alabama. They don't have the money of Georgia. They don't have the money of LSU. They don't have the money of Florida and Texas A&M. All right. Right now, they're one of those other teams that just they have a budget. Does that mean they're pinching pennies? Does that mean they're flipping through couch cushions to try to find extra cash to be able to pay coaches? No, that's not what it means. But it also means they might not be able to get into a bidding war with somebody who's going to go out there and pay some astronomical amount of cash in the middle of a pandemic to go get who they want. They're essentially taking advantage of the marketplace. Because if there wasn't a pandemic and you truly wanted some coach and some guy said, I'm going to throw $2 million at you to come be our coordinator, and you can match that, and he really wanted to be there, then voila, you've matched it. But here we are in these budget crunches. There's been jobs cut left and right. There's been sports cut left and right. I mean, all of these changes, financial changes, because of what we've gone through over the last little under a year, the folks that have money and that have survived these situations are able to take advantage of the marketplace.
That's right.
And that's where we are. I mean, that's capitalism in sport right there is what it is, essentially. And so Shane Beamer has stepped into a very, very good situation for himself and his future. He's going to be fine. But he's also stepped into some incredibly murky waters, bloody waters for that matter, if you want to use the shark reference again. And he stepped in very deep in trying to figure out exactly how to do all this and how to get it done in a timely manner to move your football program forward. I think it's admirable what he's been able to do to this point. I asked David about the hires that he's made that are still on staff for a reason. Justin Stepp was a tremendous hire at wide receiver. And that's not just me saying that. I'm not just some jackass fan who's got a microphone in front of him that's saying that, Darren. That is an industry-wide thought and pat on the back to Shane Beamer. He's gotten calls from everywhere about this guy.
We've been discussing it for the last couple of days. Yeah, and the discussion the last couple of days about Stepp's recruiting success. Not just, he's a good recruiter, but look how good he is. Look how the guys at Arkansas, the best guys they brought in, they're his guys.
Yeah.
He's a great recruiter who wants to be in Carolina. So it does seem like a good hire. Yes.
It's a home run hire. Pete Limbo was a home run hire. It fits exactly what Shane Beamer is trying to do with the special teams unit. It's South Carolina. So he has the capability hiring the right guys. And I mentioned to you the individual that I was on the phone with when I walked into the studio today, who again has been directly tied to this entire coaching search over the last couple of months, directly tied to this. And he pointed out to me as much. He said, look, he's made great hires. He's going to make great hires. It's like an octopus for Shane Beamer. He's got arms that reach everywhere in this sport. And right now, one of the challenges is going to be finding not just the right guy or the best guy, but the best guy for South Carolina.
Yes.
And how financially that can fit into the Gamecock model. They have money. The money is there. They don't have what I would call cushion money, where it's, we got plenty, do whatever you want to do it. There is the sentiment of do whatever you need to do and let me know what you need and we'll get it to you. But also there's also like this situation here. Are we really going to pay all that amount of money to keep him if he's just not totally sold on being here? We could allocate in different areas. Let me throw one other piece to this. And this is in the same conversation I had. And we talked to Shane about this. It has been noted publicly by Coach Beamer and others, not to hijack our segment here, but it's been notated publicly by Coach Beamer on our program and others, and by others covering this and who have spoken directly with Shane. There will be some expanded roles in this staff. There will be an expansion of the staff in the future.
Right.
Some of those roles will be filled by former Gamecocks who are very qualified to be on staff at the collegiate level. Some of them won't be. But there are things that he would like to do to expand the program and make it better in the long run. You see this around you, Georgia and Clemson and Bama and places like that. I'm not saying they're going to hire 100 analysts, but they'll hire more guys to improve the program. That money goes into this as well. And if you go out and overpay the market price for a quality offensive coordinator to fit your program, you're going to leave yourself short somewhere else. Now, don't get me wrong. I get it. The most important hires you can make, OC, DC, strength, special teams coordinator, at least in my opinion. I get that. And you got to pay what they're worth. But just because Mike Bobo is going to leave and Will Friend is leaving with him doesn't mean that there aren't other guys out there who are more than capable and qualified of having these jobs in Columbia at a better rate, where he can take some of that money and allocate it in other positions to continue to help improve the football program in a different way, which ultimately would result in wins as well.
There has to be some level of calm, because you pointed out sports and capitalism and market price and whatnot. So yeah, you're not going to go out and overpay for someone, because then that affects your ability to use that money in another sense. So I understand the feeling of the world being on fire, and I understand the feeling of Gamecock fans, because there is a sense of like, are we ever going to get over that hump? Because it felt like we got some positive momentum going, and now this is like a rug getting ripped out, and it's easy to sink back into that. Here we go again. But there's just got to be a little bit more. The frustration's real, and it can be real. There's just got to be a little bit of patience to see what comes next. What's Beamer's next move? And I do agree that, does he need to hit the gas pedal a little bit? Yeah, you do want to lock this thing up, because this can't keep happening. This can't keep happening. If there are other coaches that go out the door, like Tony Morell's report that it is at least possible that Kitchings could go with them. If there are more coaches that go out the door, this becomes a problem. Is it a problem now? It's eye-opening. If there are more coaches, then I think that signals something bigger than what we're at right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's some big problem at all in Columbia. I go back to what I said a little bit ago. If you just think about the situation we're in, I think that there is a marketplace where the haves and the have-nots right now are being separated because of circumstance, and the circumstances is pandemic. We're in a numbers crunch, and I think that has a lot to do with all of this. One thing to keep an eye on as well as we hit a time out here moving forward, and I know I got a question about this earlier and I didn't get a chance to answer it. I don't have an answer, but it's something to keep an eye on is how will this affect the future of Gunnar Stockton, who is the prize recruit for Carolina in the 2022 class. He has a relationship with the Bobos and the Shaws. The only information I've received on that I truly feel, and just discussing publicly, is the fact that Connor Shaw is not going anywhere at all. He will be at South Carolina is a really good thing for Carolina. I think that that's a huge piece to this puzzle for him.
It's important to at least have one of them still around. Yes, I think as it relates to Gunnar Stockton, nothing is going to be finalized anytime soon. This is going to be a wait and see thing.
Yep.
It's something to keep an eye on. It's beneficial to Carolina that yeah, Connor Shaw is still around, but who outweighs who here is, and in the end, where is Gunnar Stockton the most comfortable? Where does he and his family?
Yeah, where does he want to go to school?
Yeah,
I mean, you want to go to Carolina? You want to go to Auburn?
Exactly. So
I mean, the situation's almost working out perfect for him to be able to come to Carolina and play. If you look at kind of where things stand in that quarterback room right now.
Sure. Look, he's verbally committed. That means nothing. We all know that. It means nothing.
Even contracts.
It means nothing. Yeah. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? He could easily open it back up and end up at Southern Cal for all we know. It's a wait and see with Gunnar.
A quick note, too, to keep an eye on. This conversation will come up down the road, and this will come from the mouth of Ray Tanner at some point in time. But the 2021 South Carolina football schedule, most notably, still has Auburn coming to Columbia to take on the Gamecocks. They did it this year because they had to change things to get 10 SEC games in. Will that remain in place? Some people think it will. I don't think that will remain in place. I think that they'll find a way to move up schedules and things like that, maybe replacing the 2022 home game with 2020. You don't want to mess 2021. I'm sorry, the 2023 home game with the 2021 home game, which would be Auburn. I think that would be Mississippi State maybe for South Carolina. I have my doubts about that, but I can assure you of this. If Auburn does make a return trip for the second consecutive year to Williams-Brice Stadium, that'll be an interesting lead-in to that ball game that week.
If you're a Carolina fan, that's a game you want on this. You don't want that game moved. You want that game.
Yeah.
You want them coming because that'll be an atmosphere that you'll remember.
Yeah. There also are some reports out there that I've seen on social media. I've seen this 3 times today. This is not true. Shane Beamer was not forced to keep Mike Bobo at South Carolina at all. There's no truth in that. If you see it, delete it from your mind. That is not true. It never was true. That is in no way, shape, or form anything close to the truth. All right, our friends at McFadden Pest Control, they protect our program daily. They protect my house daily, believe it or not. They only come every 3 months, but it's protected daily because of what they do, and they've been doing it for over 40 years. McFadden Pest Control takes care of the Bradford mosquitoes and our termite bond and our household bugs, and we found 1 spider in 3 months, just 1, and that was after opening all the Christmas lights to decorate back in November. The one we found was just a few days ago, and I squashed him on the back porch. So he's gone, but they squash all of your problems. McFadden Pest Control, I'm telling you, this is not a live read. This is a friendship for me. I love Heath and his team and what they do at McFadden Pest Control, McFaddenPestControl.com. Just give them a call. Talk to them. Just talk to them. You'll feel better about your bug problems if you've got them. McFaddenPestControl.com. Time for a timeout. When we return, a documentary is Sunday night. I know we're going to get out of the big news for the day. If anything comes up, we'll get it right in. But Scott Glaze is going to join us. Really excited to get his take on what we're going to see about Tiger Woods on HBO coming up in a couple of days. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
plus tax. Tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee, but guess what? I can always listen to the JB and Goldwater show because they are always live, loud, and online.
All right, 140. Welcome back. Final segment here on this Thursday afternoon. Darren, Jamie, Scott Glaze is going to jump in here in just a quick moment. A couple of notes. We mentioned Tennessee just a moment ago. They are on a hiring pause up there. No extensions, no new hires, nothing in that football program until the investigation is complete. I'm telling you, this is just trying to make a change in Knoxville. We'll see what happens. We'll talk to Mike Wilson from Knoxville about that tomorrow. And also from the SEC, the baseball scheduling format will not change. 56 games, 10 SEC series, 3 games a weekend, and you'll be able to play your 26 non-conference games as well. That will remain intact for the Southeastern Conference moving forward. And Darren mentioned during the break a text we got. I'm not sensitive to this, but I think it's laughable when people say that I'm pumping sunshine. No. I'm giving you facts, information, and calm about this situation. If you want to be a social media message board guru and just read the bunch of gibberish every day and get all hopped up on what's wrong and nothing that's right and things like that, everything will always work itself out. You can get involved in that world all you want to. We're not going to do that around here. We're going to work on fact, not on fiction. We're going to work on truth, not on bull crap that comes from some of these message boards and social media. It's not sunshine. It's truth. I talked to the people who are involved in this situation. We know what's going on. And when we have good information, we're going to give it to you. And the information we're giving you is good. So Scott Glaze always gives you good information. He joins us at 1:42 here on this Thursday afternoon. Sorry about that, Scotty. Happy New Year. I just had to. I mean, I appreciate the people that listen and watch our program, but I can't stand when somebody tells me. I'm telling you, if there's something that I don't believe or if there's something that's just not good, I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah, it's honesty,
man. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's really hard to talk for multiple hours a day, every single day, and not be just honest. Like if you're making stuff up, it's going to be long hours.
You know, the keyboard warriors will find you, no doubt. Hey, Scott.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, hey, that's why you are great at what you do, man. You got your opinions, and you got to stick to your guns.
Well, I mean, I put my opinions out based on fact. Like when someone tells me, "Oh, it's a dumpster fire. Fire everybody and hire a new staff." Now that is just BS. Like you can't. I mean, whatever. Never mind. All right, man. Hope you're doing well. From what I understand, the golf course has been fairly crowded out there, which is great. It always is at Stone Ferry. StoneOakFerryGolf.com. I'm sure you had an influx of folks during the holiday season. I bet that was fun.
Yeah, we really did. We set a record. 2020, despite COVID, was a record year for us in terms of rounds played. I mean, we exceeded it by a big number, which was shocking. I mean, from April on, the golf industry has been booming. It's great for us. I mean, we are very fortunate, and we're also happy to be able to provide that outlet for people that still may be working from home, whatever the case may be. You can come out to the golf course and be able to socially distance and have a good time. Yeah, it's wild. We normally on New Year's Day average about 50 to 60 players, and I think we did 185 players on New Year's Day. So we're still rolling in the new year. So don't think that the cool weather is going to be a reason to be able to easily get a tee time. If you want to play golf, especially on the weekend, book ahead. You can do it online, or you can give us a call to do it, but make sure to book ahead of time to get that desired time, because golf is popular right now, and I love that. That's great.
Got to be something good to come out of COVID. Everyone's out on the golf course playing.
That's right. That's right. Everybody can at least try to improve their game. My game, I played the other day. My game's gotten worse in COVID because I've gotten to play less. So yeah, I gotta work on that this winter.
What's going to happen is we're going to look up in 10 years and the tour is going to be full of just studs, and they're all going to be like 20. You're like, well, where did these kids come from? Well, back when they were 10, none of them could go to school, so all they did was play golf all day. Right. And here they are, just throwing smoke out there, 18 holes a day. So with the new year comes a new documentary, I guess.
How about a salacious documentary?
Yeah, on Tiger Woods. I think it airs at 9:00 on Sunday night. Yes. on HBO Max. And so this morning, Scott, and you're a big Tiger fan, I'm a big Tiger fan. We know the history of Tiger Woods. I think most Tiger fans have embraced his history because of the comeback story, and we love seeing what he does on the golf course. It's certainly a new Tiger as opposed to what he went through. But I read Richard Deitch's report this morning on theathletic.com about a lot of this and just how these producers put this together. They started working on this a week after he won the Masters last year. They were actually interviewing one of the women that he had a relationship with. I think a fairly significant relationship with this one individual.
Yeah, it's the one that everyone knows about, Ucatel.
Yeah,
Ucatel, I think Rachel Ucatel, and it was, she has in Deitch's piece even said, my name will forever be Ucatel, Tiger Woods mistress.
Right. Yeah, she's embraced it, and she said, I've got nothing to lose, so I'll speak on it now. Tiger is not going to be in this. And it's not because he necessarily turned it down, according to that. Scott, I'm sure you saw this, but according to that, to give people some insight as to what this documentary will look like, he has a media contract for these things with somebody else, and they did not approve that. So they said, we're not going to let Tiger talk to you. So they said, well, we're going to do it anyways. But they've actually, from what we understand, have done the best job that they can to not make him look like a villain, just make him look like a human, and be able to tell the story for what it was. How excited are you about this documentary? What do you think that we're going to learn throughout these next couple of Sunday nights that we don't know already?
I think this is great. This is going to be really awesome. I mean, this is prime time. This is 9:00 Sunday night HBO. That is their A1 slot right there. I mean, geez, we had Game of Thrones in there forever. Anything that's significant on HBO is on Sunday night, and them putting this documentary there, I think, shows what Tiger has meant to the sports world since the mid 90s. And I think this is going to be great. I think people are going to learn a lot that don't necessarily know the story of Tiger. There's a book that came out 2 years ago, just titled Tiger Woods. And it was written by a couple of investigative journalists. It was Jeff Benedict. I think that highlighted the book there. So these guys don't necessarily know a lot about golf, but really dug into Tiger's past and talking to people that he associated with, went to school with, so on and so forth. And there was a lot of information in that book that stuff about Tiger that we didn't know, and really kind of you see how he was molded into what he was, both the good and the bad. I think this documentary is going to do the same thing, and it's going to show a lot of stories that the general public are not going to know. For instance, I've heard in this documentary they're going to interview Dinah Parr, and that was Tiger's first really serious girlfriend. And in this book, these journalists did, there was a story about how close she and Tiger were in high school, and the relationship ended abruptly when she was away, when she was away with Tiger watching him play in a golf tournament, and she showed up to her hotel room and her bags were packed, and there was a letter saying that they could no longer be in a relationship, and so on and so forth. And that's how Tiger broke up with her. So there are things like that that are certainly that the general public just does not know. And I think people can look at that negatively towards Tiger, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy did a lot of terrible things that people didn't know about. And also the interview with Rachel, you could tell there, that's going to be the first time she's ever spoken about this. So I think it's going to be really hard hitting. I don't think it's going to be like the feel good documentary like The Last Dance might have been. And I think we'll get that. We're going to get that one day with Tiger, where Tiger just kind of talks about his whole life. But I think the great thing, at least to look at it in a positive light about Tiger's career, that he had this rise and then he had this catastrophic fall to then now come back and have this comeback to be just a Tiger Woods that everyone loves now. He's not as polarizing as he once was. How awful would it have been if Tiger had had a great career and played into his mid-50s and won 25 major championships, and then after the fact we find out about all the transgressions and just everything that happened behind the scenes. So I'm fortunate for this arc of Tiger Woods, the way it has panned out. And it'll be very interesting to see over the next 2 Sundays this in-depth look at it and how these filmmakers are going to show it.
I read that book a couple of years ago, and we're all shaped some way, somehow, by all of our experiences, by the people both who are related to and not, who have been in and out of our lives. And that book opened up my eyes to how Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods, who the person Tiger Woods is and what drives him, and talked about him wanting to train with the SEALs, and maybe that was part of what led to some of his injuries. And it's fascinating to look behind the scenes, because whether you're Tiger Woods or whether you're Scott Glaze or the two of us, you don't get a look behind the scenes of an individual very often like this. I mean, once you watch this Tiger documentary, once you read that book, you're going to have a better sense of how Tiger was shaped into Tiger than you will of how I've been shaped into who I am today. I mean, that's there's no way this will be sunshine and roses, because that's not what this story is.
Right. No, I think this is it's such a unique story. It's such a complex story. I mean, it really, we had a golfer that was the face of sports for how many years, and that in the history of sports, that has never ever been the case. I mean, maybe you could argue that Bobby Jones was the face of sports back in his day, but I don't think it clearly was not the same impact of Tiger. So it's really been phenomenal to watch. I'm so lucky that I have been able to grow up with Tiger, and that's what got me into the game. And so, I was his #1 fan, biggest fan. Tiger could do no wrong, and Tiger hurt me. I was mad at Tiger when all of this came out. I remember, I mean, it took me, not like I know the guy personally, but as just such a fan, and to have this icon and inspiration and role model, it took me a couple years to kind of turn around and forgive Tiger, so to speak, and then become a fan again. And I think all of us that have followed his career have felt the same way. There's some people that are never going to forgive him for what happened. But I think what he has gone through, the public humiliation, so to speak, the fall with his injuries and addictions, and just to do all that in the public eye. And now we're going to see the behind the scenes of all of it. Then to come back the way he has, and to be the 2019 Masters champion, to captain the Victorious President's Cup team last year, just to do so many things is so impressive, and just speaks to Tiger and just the true champion that he is.
Scott Glaze, golf pro, Stono Ferry, our expert here on the JB and Goldwater Show. 153, 5 minutes left with Scott here in this segment. I think one of the things that was interesting too is that as the producer spoke about this documentary. Again, set to air at 9:00 on HBO Max on Sunday evening. That's part one. Part two will follow the following Sunday, the 17th of January. One of the things that they said that, they wanted to tell you exactly who Tiger Woods was. These are the words of people who Tiger cared about and whom cared about Tiger, and they all actually still care about Tiger, even though their relationships have ended and they don't really have anything to do with each other anymore. They found it very interesting that these folks are still quite protective of Tiger Woods because they got to know who he was. So this isn't something to hammer Tiger and his transgressions. This is something to tell his story and the mistakes he made, but the human that he is. And I think there's going to be a great balance in this documentary of what he went through that was bad, but also maybe there was a good part of him that just made bad choices, and it should humanize him to many of us who all make the same decision.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. And you're right. People like Steve Williams, his former caddy. I mean, Steve Williams made a lot of money with Tiger Woods and has a lot of fond memories with Tiger Woods. And yeah, their relationship has ended, and it might not have ended as well as it could have. But yeah, I don't foresee him coming in and bashing Tiger. And I don't think this is going to be anything to bash Tiger. I think it's going to, like we talked about, it gives you that behind the scenes look to see what molded him into who he was. I think his upbringing, I don't know if they're going to go into Earl, his father, how much they're going to go into that. But I know in the book, there was a lot about Earl, and you kind of get to see how that really molded Tiger, who he was, the great champion, but also susceptible to the downfalls that he later experienced. And I found that fascinating. And it's almost almost like a psychological experiment too, just to see, nature versus nurture, all this type stuff. That's what the book was. I think that's what this documentary will be. And I think it should give people even more respect and admiration for Tiger at the great golfer that he is. And then as a human, what he's gone through, and he's come out on the other side.
Yeah. That's what's going to be interesting to me is to see what the result of this will be to the public, or with the public. How many folks in the public will look at Tiger and say, wow, I feel for him. He went through that. He made bad decisions, but I see him differently than I did before. I think what's happened the last couple of years, like as he's, quote, like reinvented himself and rebuilt his image, I think people think that Tiger Woods just changed. I don't think that's what happened, Scott, and we'll see what the documentary shows, but I think Tiger is just Tiger again. I think Tiger was somebody for a long time he didn't really want to be, at least publicly. I mean, he was a golfer, but he had to uphold a certain image because that's how he was built. But I think Tiger is what we're seeing is maybe who Tiger was before he became the Tiger Woods star that we all got to know in 1997.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. I think this is who Tiger is. I think he was built and he was molded to be this golfing and corporate machine. He could be endorsed and was endorsed by everybody and marketed that way. And he was a phenomenal golfer, but he was built for that by his quote unquote team, which was headed by his father along with other people. And so, I hope people don't view this documentary in a bad light. I know I saw on Twitter some people that, were upset, people who've already seen it, upset with the documentary. I don't think that is what these filmmakers have set out to do. And I don't think that, I don't think that anybody should look at this negatively. I think it's just going to be a great production on really one of sports' most interesting people of all time.
Yeah, you mentioned it too, Scott. It's not like it's going to be The Last Dance. I mean, it's not going to be. Jordan had a major hand in that production. So
yeah.
So is it a negative thing? There's going to be negative aspects because it's about how a man became who he is and how he evolved. It's the same with all of us. There are things that have occurred in our past. Same with every one of us. And so there'll be things you don't like. There will be things that you see that are not favorable, but it's all the part, little pieces of the big picture of who the guy is.
Right, exactly. And let's not forget, this is HBO, so this is drama. This is not ESPN that did The Last Dance. So they're looking for drama, and I guarantee you, one day we're going to have the Last Dance version of Tiger, and he's going to have a major hand in it, and it's going to be awesome. And that will be the feel good, crazy stories, just as great as The Last Dance was. This is not that, but because of that, I think that should not be a reason for someone to not watch this documentary. I think it's going to be really, really good and just great insight, especially for the casual fan.
Yeah, you're right. The Last Dance version of Tiger Woods, one day he will have a major hand in that. 19 of them, in fact, once he breaks that major record.
Still hanging on to that.
You
hold the faith, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going to. Scotty, we got to let you run on that. As we always do, we encourage folks to head to StoneOakFerryGolf.com to check out memberships, check out opportunities to get on the course. You can book your tee time and things like that at StoneOakFerryGolf.com. I know it's chilly, but it's still a beautiful time to play out there in Hollywood, South Carolina. You can always take lessons with Scott and others as well, tee times and more. StoneOakFerryGolf.com, revamped website, and it is just gorgeous. Start the new year right. Put the sticks in your hands and go out there and pitch it around a little bit at Stone Oak Ferry. Scotty, we look forward to ramping up the tournament conversation as we move forward with you. Golf is really set to start kicking back in here soon, and we're going to be talking about all of that. So thank you so much, and Happy New Year, my friend.
Yeah, Happy New Year, guys. Great to be back with you. We do have primetime golf this weekend. They're out in Hawaii, so everybody check that out and check out the documentary. Really look forward to discussing that more. And like you said, go check out the website, StoneOakFerryGolf.com. We hope to see everybody soon.
You got it. The best hair in Charleston, Scott Glaze, joining us from Hollywood, South Carolina. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Our golf pro and expert around here. And with that, we are out of time. It has been a breaking news day here on this show. Thanks to Scott Glaze, Cory McCartney, and David Cloninger. We'll continue to follow along with the Gamecocks coaching news, and we'll have much more on that tomorrow, as a matter of fact. By the way, today, National Tempura Day and National Bobblehead Day.
Yeah, we got a couple of them right here. One of them is not broken. 3 of them are.
Oh. We got it.
Need more, though.
That's all that matters.
Need more.
Buy one, get one half off footlongs at DB's Cheesesteaks today. If you're headed through West Ashley, stop in or order online, dbscheesesteaks.com for their entire menu. Don't forget the boardwalk fries. For Darren, I'm Jamie. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you back here at noon tomorrow on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control and driven by Stokes Volkswagen.